Well, it's Christmas Day. Matrix Resurrections, probably the last 2021 movie I will see this year. I've already recorded my worst of the year list, and Matrix Resurrections is easily the worst movie of 2021. Now that's pretty damn impressive. Matrix Resurrections stars Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Neil Patrick Harris, and is directed by Lana Wachowski. What's up, guys? It's time for the last review of this year, 2021. It is Christmas Day. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. I hope you guys had a wonderful holiday, whatever you want to call today. I hope you enjoyed it. But today we're going to review I think it's the final Matrix movie. I will be shocked if they make another Matrix movie after this, even though there's room for another, but I guess if everybody thinks like me, okay? And everybody definitely does not think like me, but this was easily the worst movie of the year for me. I think it actually gets the rating, well, we'll get to the rating, okay? But the rating that I haven't given in probably over 2 years now. It's a big day, okay? Big day. Looking forward to getting into this review. Also, I'll probably be giving you guys some spoilers along the way, just because some of this stuff, you guys might think it's spoilers, you know, some of the stuff I'm gonna talk about. So just know that going into this, okay? But I will say, this movie's horrible, horrible. But first off, let's give you a quick plot synopsis. If you remember, the last Matrix movie took place in 2003. Is that right? 2003? Revolutions. This movie's called Resurrections. And I guess the big antidote that I got from this is never call a movie Resurrection. You're destined for trouble. You're destined for trouble. And this is no different. But this story essentially starts off, it's kind of like a self-aware type of experiment. You can compare this to New Nightmare a little bit because the world of the Matrix, the movies The Matrix, exist in this world. And even more so, there's the Matrix video games, which Thomas Anderson himself in this movie created. But he's always, you know, got that itch in the back of his mind, like, did the Matrix really exist or not? You know, so there's a lot of parallels to especially the first movie. And sounds like a great idea, right? It is, actually, but the execution, no sir. Even the opening scene is a direct parallel to the opening scene of the first movie. You have this character, Bugs, played by Jessica Henwick, and she's part of the crew. And really, I guess her mission in this movie is to find out more about Neo. She wants to find out where he is. Does he exist anymore? Her and her crew are trying to extract him. You have Yahya Abdul-Mateen, who was in this year's Candyman. This guy's been working a lot, actually. But he is our new Morpheus. And this was one of those things where I'm wondering if Lawrence Fishburne was actually in talks to be in this, and I don't know. Also, Hugo Weaving, who played Agent Smith, probably one of the most iconic villains of the last 2 decades. So how do you top that? But they had a different guy playing him in this. And those are just 2 of the issues of the movie. And, you know, I usually don't mind if they try to replace an actor with another actor if they can get away with it from a story perspective. But to me, it only hurts the story, especially for how iconic both those characters were in the previous movies. But we find out that this actually takes place 60 years after the events of the last movies. So that's why some of the returning characters, like, say, Jada Pinkett Smith, who plays Niobe, who is annoying in this movie, actually, because she's supposed to be this high-powered general, but I don't think they really scratch the surface on what a general is supposed to be. They're not cranky and angry all the time. This character, that's what she does throughout the whole movie. She's cranky and angry, and I am general, hear me roar, and, you know, don't get on my bad side, and I just wasn't buying it. But they're also playing off this love connection with Neo and Trinity. Carrie-Anne Moss, she's great as Trinity, but I felt like they wrapped up that story quite well with the previous movies. So they're trying to bring it back around full circle in this movie with her. And, you know, in The Matrix, she is married with kids. And Neo, you know, there's this connection between the two, which there would be, I think. And so he's constantly curious about her and to see if she feels the same connection as he does. And so ultimately, once we get into the real world and we see Neo in that pod, right next to him is a pod with Trinity. Like, how the hell did that happen? His mission in this movie is to save Trinity. You know, he was saved in the first movie. Trinity must be extracted from the pod in this movie. Guys, after watching this, it makes me think maybe the first movie was a fluke. Maybe the first movie was so perfect, you know, and I use that term loosely, in what it was, but the idea was something that could only be covered to a certain extent, meaning the second and the third movies got themselves into trouble because they did a lot of explaining, whereas I think the first movie had the right amount of, you know, character building and action, and there were moments in that movie where they stopped and said, okay, we need to do a little bit of explaining here. You know, what is the Matrix? Why is Neo waking up into this pod? And we have these two separate worlds, and they did the job beautifully in the first movie. And going on record, I'm a huge fan of the first movie. I think it is probably one of the best sci-fi movies ever created. Because of just the perfect balance and characters and all that. And you could set this movie side by side with Resurrections, and this is how you do it right, this is how you do it wrong. One of the big things too is with the characters. Every character in this movie is completely forgettable or annoying. Even the returning characters, and I already touched on Niobe. But Keanu Reeves himself, he's not really upping the ante in terms of the character of Neo. He does seem kind of tired. Look, it's nice to see Neo and Trinity back again. And of course, I would have loved that in a good sequel. And I will admit, when I saw the trailer, I was a little worried, but I thought, hey, this might be a step in the right direction, because you can't go down, I guess, the rabbit hole, like they talk in this movie, any further after Revolutions. You know, the big war had already taken place. Trinity died at the end of that. It just felt like this big sense of closure. So how do you reopen this whole thing? And I think for the first, 10, 15 minutes in this movie, they did have a good idea, but the execution was just handled poorly. Another big problem that this movie does is it spends way too much time explaining things along the way, harkening back to already set up rules, while also making up new ones along the way. And sometimes when you get into that exposition, it can bog a movie down. And I'm not saying I wanted this movie to just be constant action, but I think you have to have a balance there. The characters, you have to spend a good amount just, building those characters and making you really adore them and care for them. Every character in the original Matrix, the crew, Dozer, Tank, Morpheus, Trinity, Neo, it was a small crew, and they spent just the right amount of time, not an equal amount of time, but the right amount of time with each character. Whereas this one, I think there's too many characters and you really don't get to know any of them. Now remember, in The Matrix Reloaded, we had a character called the Architect. Well, in this one, we have the Analyst, played by Neil Patrick Harris, and he starts off as kind of a therapist. He has the power to control the Matrix in certain aspects. And there are these scenes where he slows down time, and he kind of makes a play on bullet time, using it against Neo. But the scene itself just felt kind of low budget and made for TV. A lot of this movie actually felt like that. But if I could lump the villains all into one category with, Analyst and Discount Smith, that's what I'll call him, and hell, I hate to say this, but Discount Morpheus. Even though Yahya Abdul-Mateen is a fantastic actor, okay, not taking anything away from him, but I think they should have used Lawrence Fishburne if they could have gotten away with it. The problem you're going to get into is you're going to compare those actors with the previous actors who not only played the part very well, but were iconic. Also, since I get away with it and I can talk about spoilers a little bit, let's talk about feminism for a little bit. I might get myself in trouble here, but you know what? I got to be honest, okay? I love Trinity to death, and they're trying to really give this strong female angle with making Trinity kind of the one, just like Neo. She saves Neo at the end of this movie, and she's the one who can fly, which they don't really build the character up to justify her having the powers of the one. I was just like, are you serious? They're literally giving her the power that Neo had. Not only that, but when the scene plays out and, you know, they're flying off and she's literally holding Neo, it looked like she was on a wire holding him. So the execution of the scene failed miserably as well. And you didn't need to do that, because if you think back to the first movie, Trinity was probably one of the coolest, most powerful female characters I've ever seen in cinema. So why even go that extra step to make it feel forced, to make it feel fake? That's exactly what it did. It took something away from who Trinity was originally in the first movie. And by the way, she does save Neo in the first movie without being the one. That is a powerful female character. Didn't need it. So guys, in the end, this is just a mess of a movie. I think the script is all over the place. And I feel like they were making up rules along the way to justify some of the stupid decisions that they made. And really the big thing is it was boring. Boring as fuck. You know, you can give me the most idiotic decisions in a movie. You can make a movie hilarious unintentionally, and I'll take all that over giving me a boring movie. You give me a boring movie, then to me that's the worst cinematic crime ever, because halfway through the movie I'm just like sinking down in my seat and I'm like, can we please just get to the point here? And it really made me appreciate editing and storytelling. And it just really made me appreciate the first movie and even the second and third movies, because those movies miles and miles better than this movie. But anyway, you gotta have a good balance in a story. That's why there is a such thing as a first, second, and third act. It's not just called that for time, it's called that for balance. Story and character building. Your highs and your lows of a story, and your climaxes, and your moments filled with action. You have to have a good balance for all that stuff. And in this one, no balance, just all over the place. So in the end, guys, big day. Looped in hell. Haven't given that rating in ages, and boy, did this movie earn it big time, in spades. Merry Christmas. So anyway, guys, what did you think of Matrix Resurrections? If you liked it, let me know down in the comments. If you did, I'm so happy for you. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks. We'll talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. We do Free For All Fridays. Follow my Drumdums on all my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Drumdum out.